And welcome to our Capitol Report with Pat McGuigan with CapitolBeatOK.com. Pat, thanks for being with us. Thank you for being with us this morning. Pat, let's start off with a bit of good news this week. The Rainy Day Fund got a nice little deposit.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Preston Dorfler, the Director of State Finance, announced a $219 million deposit as a result of accumulation, particularly in recent months, of government revenues. $219 million deposit into the Rainy Day Fund. That was on Monday. Then on Tuesday, we got that unexpected rain, so I got to talk about the Rainy Day Fund on a rainy day with some of my sources. In all seriousness, it's the biggest single-year deposit since 2005, and especially given the national budget, finance and budget and deficit picture, for Oklahoma to be in this kind of position is really pretty exciting. The economy in Oklahoma is definitely surging. We've got one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, almost 4% lower than the national rate, and government revenues grew as a result of that robust economy. State tax revenues grew in double digits for the year and 15% in the month of June.
So how do we look then kind of nationally if we compare our economy on the national scale?
Okay, that's where the plot thickens. Governor Fallin is very hopeful, and I think there's a basis for her to be hopeful. The concern is Moody's Investors Service, which is an entity we've talked about before, which, like several others, just a handful, but a few bond rating entities. Oklahoma has always been able to pay its debt and is given a high rating. At the national level, it's been the same, but they are so concerned about the debt limit crisis or controversy, whatever you want to call it, that Moody's announced that they might downgrade the American bond ratings. And that would be, I don't like to use words like catastrophic, that would be extremely serious because the cost of borrowing then becomes even more expensive when we're already in a cycle where we're borrowing too much.
But still, does the governor, with this latest bit of good news, have some more ammunition in saying, hey, we're making some progress in turning things around?
I think she has a pretty strong case that Oklahoma has been doing the right things and has accelerated the pace of doing the right thing. We have 28 months now of positive news for Oklahoma in terms of the trend compared to the nation. You've got a 5.3% unemployment rate. The question is, can we keep the momentum going? And of course, what Fallin's going to argue and her people is we have to keep the same kinds of low tax policies, doing some compacting of government services in order to get to that better future.
Let's talk about education. There's been a good deal of talk about education reform, and the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Janet Barresi, has been talking a lot about this and actually getting some things done. What is she doing with regard to reform of common education?
Well, it was controversial, but she got most of the key elements that she wanted in terms of reform, not only in her ability to run the agency, the State Department of Education, but the authority to implement reform. So what you have now is the effort to make real at the district level these reforms, like grading schools on the basis of A to F, no more social promotion after third grade, if kids aren't reaching their reading levels and so forth. There's the opportunity scholarships to give a chance to kids that haven't been getting an adequate education. She's got the authority. She's making an effort to reach out. There has been controversy.
Yeah, and why is she getting so much criticism over these reforms? So some of them seem to have worked well in Florida and other states.
Well, it's change, and it's interesting you refer to Florida because, of course, Jeb Bush had the same kind of problems, and in the accumulation of 8 years, he was able to get a lot done. There is a partisan component to this. It's just an observation. It's not a criticism. There's some bipartisan concern about some of the changes she's proposed and some of the budget compacting that had to be done. But having said that, the other day there were 30 plus or minus people demonstrating against Barresi at her education conference, and there were 3,000 people inside trying to find a way to go forward on school policy.
Do you see that there's some common ground here? I know that there are several interim studies looking at some of these issues.
Real quickly, possibly, we'll see. There's interim studies on deregulation of local districts, which the districts might want in light of this budget tightness. Best practices study by Ann Cootie, who's the Education Committee Chairman in the House. Administrative costs, health and fitness, which is actually going to be led by one of the Democratic members, looking at ways to make our kids healthier within the schools. Maybe common ground on some of those.
Well, it's one that really impacts so many of us, so we'll be watching, as I know you will be too.
Right.
You can read more about these topics and others at CapitolBeatOK.com. Pat, thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day.